What if Naruto had child with all 10-tailed female beasts? The autumn wind swept through Konohagakure with unusual intensity, carrying with it whispers of change that even the most seasoned shinobi could feel in their bones. Naruto Uzumaki, the 7th Hokage, stood at his office window, his blue eyes reflecting the orange and red leaves that danced through the village streets below. At 35, he had achieved everything he'd once dreamed of as a child, yet lately, an inexplicable restlessness had taken root in his chest. You feel it too, don't you, Naruto? The voice resonated not from the room, but from within his mind. Kurama, the 9-tailed fox, had been his partner for so long that such mental communication had become second nature. But there was something different in the fox's tone today. Something almost nervous. Yeah, Naruto replied aloud, forgetting for a moment that he was alone in the office. It's like the air itself is holding its breath. What's going on, Kurama? The great fox was silent for a long moment, and Naruto could sense an internal struggle taking place within his longtime companion. Finally, Kurama spoke, his voice carrying a weight that made Naruto's stomach tighten with apprehension. There's something I never told you. Something the old man sage made us all swear to keep secret until the time was right. Kurama paused, and Naruto could feel genuine uncertainty emanating from the beast. That time has come, Kit. And I'm not sure either of us is going to like what comes next. Before Naruto could respond, a surge of chakra exploded across the village with such force that every shinobi within 20 miles would have felt it. But this wasn't hostile chakra. It was familiar. Impossibly, it felt like all 9 of the tailed beasts were suddenly present in Konoha simultaneously. Naruto's body flickered with yellow light as he entered sage mode instinctively, his senses expanding to pinpoint the source of the disturbance. What he sensed made his eyes widen in disbelief. 9 distinct signatures, each unmistakably belonging to one of the tailed beasts, yet each was somehow different. Smaller. More condensed. And most impossibly, each signature felt undeniably human. Kurama, what the hell is this? Naruto demanded, already moving toward the door. They've taken their human forms, Kurama said quietly. All of them. The females are here, Naruto. And they've come for you. Females? What are you talking about? I thought you were all male? Female? We're chakra-given form, Kit. We can be whatever we choose to be. But the Sage of Six Paths created us with the capacity to take human shape when necessary. We just never had a reason to before. Kurama's voice grew even more serious. Until now. Naruto burst through his office door, nearly colliding with Shikamaru, his aide and closest advisor. The scarred shinobi grabbed Naruto's shoulder, his expression more troubled than Naruto had seen in years. Naruto, we've got a situation. 9 women just appeared in the village square. The ANBU tried to intercept them, but... Shikamaru's eye twitched, a sign of severe stress. They didn't attack or threaten anyone. They just asked to speak with you. By name. And Naruto, the chakra signatures they're giving off, this is troublesome on a whole new level. I know, Naruto said, gently removing Shikamaru's hand. I can feel them. It's going to be okay, Shikamaru. I think I need to handle this one personally. Shikamaru studied his friend's face for a long moment before nodding slowly. I've already cleared the square and established a perimeter. Whatever this is, Naruto, be careful. This feels bigger than anything we've dealt with since the war. As Naruto made his way through the village, he could feel the eyes of his people on him. Fear and confusion rippled through the crowds being held back by ANBU and regular forces. He offered what he hoped were reassuring smiles, but his mind was racing too fast to focus on much beyond putting one foot in front of the other. The village square had been completely evacuated except for a ring of elite shinobi maintaining the perimeter, and in the center, standing in a loose semicircle, were 9 women whose very presence seemed to distort the air around them. Naruto stopped at the edge of the cleared space, his breath catching in his throat. Each woman was different, yet each possessed an otherworldly beauty that transcended normal human appearance. Their eyes glowed faintly with colors that corresponded to the tailed beasts he knew so well. One had eyes of blazing crimson, another cool blue, a third, earthy brown. The woman with crimson eyes stepped forward, and Naruto felt Kurama stir within him. She had long, flowing red hair that seemed to move with its own will, and 9 translucent tails of chakra flickered in and out of visibility behind her. When she smiled, it was Kurama's mischievous grin on a heartbreakingly beautiful face. "Hello, Naruto," she said, and her voice was Kurama's voice, but softer, feminine, yet unmistakably the same consciousness he'd known for decades. "Surprised? That's putting it mildly," Naruto managed, his usual confidence shaken. "Kurama, you're female in this form. As are all my siblings when they choose this shape." She gestured to the other 8 women. "Allow me to introduce you properly. Though you've met all of us before, you've never seen us quite like this." A woman with elegant blue hair and what appeared to be 3 transparent tails stepped forward, her movements graceful and precise. "Aisabu, the 3 tails," she said with a slight bow. "It's good to see you again, Naruto. You helped free me from those who would control me." One by one, the others introduced themselves. Matatabi, the 2 tails, with heterochromatic eyes of yellow and blue. Son Goku, the 4 tails, with fiery red hair and a warrior's bearing. Koko, the 5 tails, serene and dignified with white hair. Saiken, the 6 tails, whose bubbly personality manifested in a cheerful smile despite the gravity of the situation. Chomei, the 7 tails, practically vibrating with energy and sporting iridescent wings that occasionally appeared and vanished. Gyuki, the 8 tails, tall and imposing with 8 tentacle-like braids. And finally, Shikaku, the 1 tail, smaller than the others with wild sandy blonde hair and an impish grin. "This is insane," Naruto breathed. "Why now? Why this form? And why are you all here together?" The woman who was Kurama's human manifestation stepped closer, her expression growing serious. "Because a prophecy is coming to fruition, Naruto. One that the Sage of 6 Paths himself made before he divided his power and created us. One that only we, the tailed beasts, were entrusted to remember and recognize when the time came." "A prophecy? About what?" "About you," said Gyuki, her deep voice resonating with power. "About a child of prophecy who would bring true peace to the world not through power alone, but through understanding, through bonds that transcend the divisions between humans and beasts, between chakra and flesh." Matatabi stepped forward, her twin-colored eyes locked on Naruto's. "You've befriended all of us, Naruto. You've shown us that humans and tailed beasts can coexist, can be partners instead of master and slave. You ended the cycle of hatred that plagued the shinobi world. But the sage foresaw that this was only the beginning." "The beginning of what?" Naruto asked, though a part of him wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Kurama took both of his hands in hers, and the contact sent a jolt through Naruto's system. It was Kurama's chakra, familiar as his own heartbeat, yet filtered through this human form it felt different, intimate in a way that made him deeply uncomfortable. The sage foresaw that one day, a human and the tailed beasts would need to become more than partners, more than friends. That we would need to become family in the truest, most literal sense. Kurama's crimson eyes held his, and in them he saw millennia of loneliness, of watching humans from the outside, of being treated as weapons and monsters. He prophesied that this human, this child of prophecy, would father children with each of the tailed beasts. That from those unions would come a new generation that would serve as living bridges between our worlds. The world seemed to tilt beneath Naruto's feet. You can't be serious. That's impossible. Your chakra constructs not. We can take human form, Aisabu said gently. In this form, we are as human as we choose to be. The sage gave us this ability for precisely this purpose. We can bear children, Naruto, and according to the prophecy, we must. This is crazy, Naruto said, pulling his hands free from Kurama's and stepping back. I'm married. I have kids. I can't just, this is insane. We know, Koko said, her voice soothing. We know what we're asking is beyond anything you could have imagined. But the prophecy is specific, and its timing is not random. Something is coming, Naruto. Something that will threaten everything you've built, everything we've achieved together. And only the children of this union will have the power to face it. Shikaku bounced forward, her energy at odds with the serious conversation. Look, Blondie, we're not exactly thrilled about this either. Do you know how weird it is to suddenly feel feelings like this? But the old man's prophecies have never been wrong. When you and Kurama truly bonded, when you brought peace to the shinobi world, you triggered the conditions. Now the rest of the prophecy has to unfold or we're all screwed. What exactly is this threat? Naruto demanded. If there's something coming, we can prepare, we can fight it together without this. The 9 women exchanged glances, and Naruto saw genuine fear in their eyes. Fear from beings that had existed for 1,000 years, that had survived every calamity the shinobi world had thrown at them. We don't know exactly what it is, Gyuki admitted. Only that it's connected to the Otsutsuki, to forces beyond even what Kagaya represented. The sage's prophecy spoke of a darkness that would seek to unravel the very fabric of chakra itself, and that only those who embodied the union of human and beast, of mortal determination and primordial power, could stand against it. Naruto's mind reeled. The Otsutsuki. That name alone was enough to send chills down his spine. He'd faced their kind before, beings of incomprehensible power who saw the shinobi world as nothing more than a resource to harvest. If something connected to them was coming, something that scared the tailed beasts. How long do we have? He asked quietly. The signs have already begun, Matatabi said. Disturbances in the chakra flow across the world. Anomalies that our hosts have been reporting. We estimate 5 years, perhaps less, before whatever is coming arrives in full force. And these children, the prophecy says they are only hope? The prophecy says they are the key, Kurama corrected. Not a weapon, Naruto. Never just a weapon, but children who will understand both worlds, who will have the potential to reach heights of power and understanding that neither humans nor beasts alone could achieve. Naruto looked at each of the 9 women in turn. Kurama, who had been with him through everything. Gyuki, whose previous host Killer Bee had become like a brother to him. The others, whom he met and befriended in his journey to end the war. They weren't lying. They weren't trying to manipulate him. He could feel their sincerity, their fear, and beneath it all, a strange hope that he didn't quite understand. I need time, he finally said. I need to think about this. To talk to figure out what this means. We understand, Isaba said. This is not a decision to be made lightly. But Naruto, time is not a luxury we have in abundance. Every day we delay is a day closer to whatever is coming. I know, Naruto said, running a hand through his blonde hair in frustration. Just give me a few days. Please. Kurama nodded, and one by one, the women began to disperse in swirls of chakra, returning to their hosts or to wherever they had come from. Only Kurama remained, and she stepped close to Naruto one more time. I know this is hard, Kit, she said softly, using the affectionate nickname she'd given him years ago. But I've been with you since you were born. I've watched you grow, watched you achieve the impossible again and again. If anyone can handle this, if anyone can make this work and still be who they are at their core, it's you. Kurama, I don't know if I can do this, Naruto admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if this is right. The prophecy doesn't care about right or wrong, Naruto. It just is. But what you do with it, how you approach it, who you remain through it all, that's entirely up to you. That's what makes you the child of prophecy. Not destiny, but choice. She smiled sadly. Think about it. We'll be waiting. Then she too vanished, and Naruto was left standing alone in the village square, surrounded by confused and frightened shinobi, with the weight of an impossible decision settling onto his shoulders. The next 3 days were a blur of meetings, explanations, and damage control. The appearance of the tailed beasts in human form had sent shockwaves through the shinobi world. The other Kage demanded explanations. The village council wanted answers. And Naruto found himself unable to provide either, because he was still grappling with the truth himself. Hinata, his wife, had taken the news better than he'd expected, though he could see the pain in her eyes even as she tried to be understanding. She was a woman of incredible strength and compassion, but this was beyond anything their marriage vows had prepared them for. Do you believe them? She asked on the 3rd night, as they sat together in their home, their children asleep upstairs, blissfully unaware of how their world might be about to change. About the prophecy, about the threat? I don't know what to believe, Naruto admitted. But I know they weren't lying. And I know that the sage's prophecies have always come true before. Then we'll face it together, Hinata said, taking his hand. Whatever you decide, Naruto, I'm with you. I always have been. Her words should have been comforting, but they only made the weight heavier. Because he knew deep down that this was a burden he couldn't fully share with her. This was something that would change him, change their family, change everything. On the fourth day, Naruto made his decision. He called the 9 women to meet him in a secure location outside the village, a clearing in the forest where he trained as a genin, where life had been simpler and prophecies were things that happened to other people. They arrived together, taking shape from swirls of chakra, and waited silently for him to speak. I've made my decision, Naruto said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. But before I tell you, I need to know something. This prophecy, these children, are they guaranteed to be able to stop what's coming? Is this a sure thing? The women exchanged glances, and it was Gyuki who answered. Nothing is guaranteed, Naruto. The prophecy speaks of potential, of possibility. It gives us a chance, perhaps our only chance, but there are no certainties when it comes to the future. So I could do this, could turn my entire life upside down, and it might not even matter in the end. Yes, Kurama said bluntly. That's the truth of it. But it's also true that without this, without the children the prophecy speaks of, we have no chance at all. We've run the calculations, consulted the ancient texts, examined every alternative. This is the only path we can see. Naruto nodded slowly, his decision crystallizing even as doubt gnawed at him. Then here's what's going to happen. I'm not going to do this just because some ancient prophecy says I should. I'm not going to father children with beings I barely know, no matter how long you've been connected to me. He saw disappointment flicker across some of their faces, but he held up a hand. But I'm also not going to let the world burn because I was too stubborn or too scared to do what needed to be done. So here's my condition. I want time. Time to get to know each of you as individuals, not as the tailed beasts I've known, but as the women standing before me now. Time to understand what this really means, what kind of parents we could be, what kind of lives these children would have, and most importantly, time to make sure this is something we're all choosing, not just accepting because a prophecy demands it. Matatabi tilted her head, her dual-colored eyes thoughtful. You want to court us? That's unexpectedly traditional. Call it what you want, Naruto said with a slight smile. I call it making sure we're doing this for the right reasons, because if these children are going to be our hope, if they're going to bridge our worlds, then they deserve to come from something more than obligation. They deserve to come from understanding, from respect, and maybe even from something like love. Kurama laughed, the sound rich and warm. You really are something special, Kit. Most men given this opportunity would just... She trailed off, shaking her head. But that's why you're you. Fine, we'll do it your way. We'll give you time to know us, and we'll take time to know you. Not as host and beast, but as potential partners in this insane endeavor. How long? Asked Chomei, her wings fluttering with barely contained energy. As long as it takes, Naruto said firmly. But not so long that we're caught unprepared. I'm thinking we start now, immediately. I want to spend time with each of you, learn your stories, understand who you are beyond the chakra and the power. And along the way, we figure out together how to make this work. And your wife? Isabu asked gently. Your family? They're part of this conversation too, Naruto said. Hinata knows. She understands what's at stake. It's not easy for any of us, but she's stronger than anyone gives her credit for. We'll figure it out together, all of us. Saiken stepped forward, her usually cheerful expression serious. You realize what you're proposing is going to take months, possibly a year or more? And we only have 5 years until whatever's coming arrives? Then we better make the most of the time we have, Naruto said. But I won't bring children into this world just to be weapons against a threat. They deserve better. We all deserve better. For a long moment, silence reigned in the clearing. Then, one by one, the 9 women nodded their agreement. It was unprecedented, it was risky, and it was completely insane, but it was also the most Naruto solution any of them could have imagined. All right then, Kurama said, stepping forward and extending her hand. Let's do this your way, Kit. Let's build something worth protecting instead of just creating weapons to do the protecting. Naruto took her hand, feeling the familiar chakra pulse between them, but filtered through this new understanding, this new possibility. As he looked at the 9 women who represented some of the most powerful beings in the world, he felt the weight of what was to come settle over him. But beneath the weight, beneath the fear and the uncertainty, he also felt something he hadn't expected: hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, they could turn this prophecy into something beautiful instead of just necessary. That the children who would come from this union would inherit not just power, but purpose, not just strength, but understanding. As the sun set over the forest, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that matched Kurama's hair, Naruto Uzumaki took the first step on a journey that would redefine everything he thought he knew about family, destiny, and the bonds that could exist between different worlds. The gathering storm had arrived, but Naruto was determined to meet it not with fear, but with the same stubborn optimism that had carried him through every impossible situation before. And this time, he wouldn't be facing it alone. He'd have 9 incredible beings by his side, each carrying their own hopes, their own fears, and their own dreams for what their children might become. The prophecy had set them on this path, but Naruto was determined that they would walk it on their own terms. Whatever came next, whatever challenges they would face together, as a family bound not just by destiny, but by choice. And in the end, that choice would make all the difference. The moon hung heavy over Kanahigakure, its pale light filtering through the windows of the Hokage's private archives. Naruto sat surrounded by ancient scrolls, his eyes burning from hours of reading by candlelight. If he was going to understand this prophecy, if he was going to make informed decisions about the impossible path laid before him, he needed to know everything. Beside him, the spectral form of Kurama's human manifestation sat cross-legged, her 9 tails swaying gently in the non-existent breeze. She had offered to help him search through the records, to fill in the gaps that even the most complete historical documents couldn't cover. "You won't find it written down," Kurama said softly, watching Naruto unfurl yet another scroll. The sage didn't want this prophecy recorded where anyone could find it. He entrusted it only to us, his children, with specific instructions about when to reveal it. Naruto set down the scroll with a frustrated sigh. "Then tell me. All of it. No more cryptic warnings or partial explanations. If I'm going to do this, I need to understand what the sage actually foresaw." Kurama was silent for a long moment, her crimson eyes distant as she reached back through millennia of memories. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of ages. It was near the end of the sage's life. He had already divided his power, already created us from the 10 tails chakra. We thought we understood our purpose: to spread chakra throughout the world, to serve as guardians and teachers to humanity. But the old man called us together one final time, just the 10 of us, in a place that no longer exists. Kurama's form flickered, and suddenly Naruto felt himself being pulled into a vision, into a memory that wasn't his own. The landscape was unlike anything Naruto had ever seen. Mountains floated in the air, their peaks wreathed in clouds that shimmered with rainbow light. Rivers flowed upward, defying gravity, and the very air thrummed with pure, concentrated chakra. The sage of 6 paths stood at the center of a massive stone platform, his appearance both younger and infinitely older than the legends described. Around him, 10 massive forms loomed, the tailed beasts in their original shapes, each radiating power that made reality itself ripple. "My children," the sage said, his voice resonating with power and profound sadness. "I have seen the future. Many futures. And in most of them, the path I have set in motion leads to suffering beyond imagination." The 10 tails, still whole, still unified before being split, shifted uneasily. "Then why create us at all, Father?" it rumbled. "Why divide yourself if you know it will bring pain? Because in one future, in one singular possibility, it leads to something beautiful. Something I could never have imagined or created on my own." The sage's eyes, the same Rinnegan that had defeated Kaguya, looked at each beast in turn. "A child will be born far in the future. A child who will suffer, who will be rejected, who will know loneliness as deeply as any of you will come to know it. This child will be my reincarnation's host," the sage continued. "And through bonds forged in fire and sealed in understanding, he will do what I could not. He will end the cycle of hatred that my mother began. He will prove that humans and beasts can be partners, not master and slave." One of the tails, the form that would one day become Shikaku, spoke up. "So we're supposed to just wait? For centuries? For this one human?" You will wait. You will suffer. You will be sealed, controlled, weaponized. You will know what it means to be treated as monsters. The sage's voice broke slightly. And I am sorry. But it is necessary. Your suffering will teach you what this child already knows, what it means to be rejected for something you cannot control. The 10 tails began to fragment, its form splitting as the sage prepared to divide it. But before the division was complete, the sage spoke one more time. When the child of prophecy ends the great war, when he proves that understanding can triumph over hatred, you must reveal yourselves to him in new forms. Forms he can understand, can connect with beyond the bond of host and beast. You must take human shape, male or female as you choose, and you must ask him for something that will seem impossible. What? Asked the portion that would become Kurama. What could this child possibly give us that we don't already have? The sage smiled, and in that smile was infinite sadness and infinite hope. A family. True family. Not the family of shared chakra or common origin, but family born of choice and love. Each of you will bear a child with him, and those children will be the key to facing what comes after. What comes after? Multiple voices asked in unison. The sage's expression darkened. My mother's kind. The Otsutsuki. They will come again, drawn by the concentration of chakra. But they will not come as individuals this time. They will come as something worse. They will bring with them a being that seeks to undo chakra itself, to unravel the very concept of the energy that binds all life together. Then why not just create these children yourself? Why put them through this? The question came from what would become Gyuki. Because I cannot create what must exist, the sage said simply. These children must be born from genuine connection, from bonds forged through shared struggle and mutual respect. They must inherit not just power, but understanding. The determination of humanity, and the primordial strength of the beasts. They must be living proof that different worlds can unite. And if this child refuses? Asked the future Matatabi. Then all futures end in darkness, the sage said quietly. But I have seen his heart across the time streams. He will not refuse. He may resist, he may struggle with the decision, but in the end, his need to protect those he loves will overcome his doubts. That is both his greatest strength and his heaviest burden. The 10 tails began to split in earnest now, each fragment taking its own consciousness, its own identity. As they separated, the sage's final words echoed across the fragmenting mindscape. Remember this, my children. The prophecy is not a chain. It is an opportunity. How you fulfill it, how you approach the child of prophecy, what kind of parents you become, that is entirely your choice. I give you the framework, but you must build the house yourselves. And know this, I love you all, and I am sorry for the pain you will endure. But I also have faith that the family you will build will be worth every moment of suffering. Then the vision shattered, and the 10 became 9. And each went their separate ways into a world that would fear and hate them for centuries to come. Naruto gasped as he returned to his own consciousness, his heart pounding and sweat beading on his forehead. The memory had been so vivid, so real, that he could still feel the weight of the sage's words pressing down on him. That's what he actually said? Naruto managed. He knew we would all suffer? He planned for it? Not planned, Kurama corrected gently. Foresaw. There's a difference. The sage didn't want us to suffer, Naruto, but he knew that without that suffering, without understanding what it meant to be rejected and feared, we could never truly connect with you. We would have remained what we were created to be, powerful but isolated, unable to understand the human experience. That's still messed up, Naruto said, but his voice lacked heat. He'd learned enough about prophecy and destiny to know that the future was rarely kind to those caught in its currents. The question is, Kurama said, leaning forward, now that you know the full prophecy, now that you understand what the sage foresaw, does it change anything? Naruto was quiet for a long moment, processing everything he just witnessed. Finally, he looked up at Kurama with determination in his eyes. It changes everything and nothing, he said. I understand why this has to happen. I get that these children are supposed to be some kind of ultimate defense against this Otsutsuki threat. But the sage was right about one thing, how we do this matters. He said you had a choice in how to fulfill the prophecy. Well, so do I. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not going to treat this like some breeding program to create super weapons. If I'm going to be a father to these children, if we're all going to be parents, then we need to actually build something worth protecting. The sage said the children need to be born from genuine connection, right? So that's what we're going to create. Kurama smiled, and Naruto saw pride in her eyes. You really are his reincarnation, you know. That same stubborn idealism that somehow manages to make the impossible possible. Before Naruto could respond, a shimmer in the air announced the arrival of another presence. Gyuki materialized in the archive, her 8 braided tails swaying behind her, as she bowed slightly to Naruto. Forgive the intrusion, Hokage-sama, she said formally, though there was a hint of amusement in her eyes. But the others have been discussing your proposal, and we'd like to move forward with it. Courtship process you suggested. Already? Naruto blinked in surprise. It's only been 4 days. We've waited over 1,000 years to be treated as individuals rather than weapons, Gyuki said with a slight smile. Forgive us for being a bit eager to start. Besides, as Saiken pointed out, we don't have unlimited time. 5 years might seem like a lot, but for beings who measure time in centuries, it's barely a heartbeat. Naruto stood, stretching muscles cramped from hours of sitting. All right then. How do you want to do this? We've discussed it among ourselves, Kurama said, also rising. And we think it would be best if you spent time with each of us individually first. Not all at once, not as a group, but one-on-one. Really get to know each of us as individuals. That makes sense, Naruto agreed. But how do we decide the order? I don't want anyone to feel like they're being prioritized or overlooked. Gyuki laughed, a deep, rich sound. We already sorted that out. Shikaku suggested we draw lots, but Chome thought it should be based on our number of tails. In the end, Issabu proposed we simply go in the order we were created. 1 through 9. Which means Shikaku first, Naruto said, thinking of the energetic sandy blonde woman with the wild attitude. She's waiting for you in training ground 3, Kurama said. And Naruto? Don't hold back. We're not fragile humans who need to be coddled. We've existed for millennia. We can handle honesty, even if it's harsh. Naruto nodded and headed for the door, but paused at the threshold. Kurama? Why did you all choose to be female? The sage said you could be male or female. Why this form? Kurama's expression softened. Because the sage's prophecy was specific. He foresaw children born from union with the child of prophecy. That meant we needed to be able to bear those children, but more than that. She hesitated, seeming to search for the right words. In all the centuries we existed, we were always seen as threats, as weapons, as things to be controlled. Male forms would have just reinforced that. But as females, taking on the form associated with creation and nurturing rather than destruction, it felt right. Like we were choosing to be something other than what the world had made us. I think I understand, Naruto said quietly. Then he flashed his trademark grin. All right then. Let's see what Shikaku has to say. Training Ground 3 was one of the larger practice areas on the outskirts of Konoha, a sprawling expanse of forest and rocky terrain that had been used for generations to train shinobi in wilderness combat. When Naruto arrived, he found Shikaku sitting on a boulder, swinging her legs like an impatient child. In her human form, Shikaku was smaller than the others, maybe 5 feet tall, with wild sandy blonde hair that stuck up in all directions. Her eyes were a striking amber color marked with the distinctive pattern of her beast form, and she wore a loose, comfortable outfit that seemed designed for movement. Most noticeably, a single translucent tail swayed behind her, flickering in and out of visibility. Took you long enough, she called out when she spotted Naruto. I've been waiting here for like 30 whole minutes. Do you know how long 30 minutes is when you've existed for centuries? It's like, well, it's still only 30 minutes, but it feels longer when you're excited. Naruto couldn't help but smile at her energy. He'd expected Shikaku to be difficult, maybe even hostile. She'd spent more time sealed away than almost any of the other beasts, and her original host, Gaara, had suffered terribly because of her. Sorry about that, Naruto said, hopping up onto a nearby boulder. I was learning about the prophecy. The full version. Shikaku's expression turned serious, a dramatic shift from her previous energy. Heavy stuff, huh? The old man really knew how to lay on the doom and gloom. Oh, you'll all suffer for centuries, but trust me, it'll be worth it. She mimicked the sage's voice with surprising accuracy, then shrugged. But he wasn't wrong, I guess. If I hadn't spent all that time being treated like a monster, I don't think I would have understood what Gaara went through. And if I hadn't understood that, I wouldn't be here now, actually wanting to make this work. You want this to work? Naruto asked carefully. Really? This whole thing is insane, Shikaku. You don't have to pretend you're okay with it. I'm not pretending, Shikaku said, her amber eyes meeting his directly. Look, I'm not going to lie and say I've dreamed about having kids with some human. That wasn't exactly on my 1,000-year bucket list. But the old man was right about one thing. I'm tired of being alone. Tired of being the crazy one, the unstable one, the beast that everyone's afraid to get close to. She hopped off her boulder and walked closer to Naruto, her expression more vulnerable than he'd expected. You know what the worst part of being sealed was? It wasn't the imprisonment. It wasn't even the loss of freedom. It was the loneliness, sitting in that dark space, unable to connect with anyone, unable to be understood. Just me and my thoughts for decades at a time. Shikaku's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. When Gaara finally understood me, finally reached out and treated me like a partner instead of a curse, it was like seeing light for the first time in centuries. And now you're offering something even more than that. A real connection. A family. Naruto felt something shift in his chest. He'd known the tailed beast had suffered, but hearing it from Shikaku, seeing the raw emotion in her eyes, made it real in a way that abstract knowledge never could. I can't promise this will be easy, Naruto said honestly. I don't know how to be in a relationship with 9 different people. I don't know how to balance being a father to my existing kids and to the children we'd have. I don't even know if I can do what the prophecy asks without losing who I am. Nobody's asking you to have all the answers, Blondie, Shikaku said, her characteristic energy returning. We're all figuring this out together. But here's what I know, you're stubborn, you're loyal to a fault, and you actually give a damn about people who are supposed to be monsters. That's more than anyone's ever offered us before. So what do you want from this time together? Naruto asked. What do you want me to know about you? Shikaku grinned, and there was something wild and free in that expression. I want you to know I'm not just the crazy one-tail. I want you to understand that I'm more than my worst moments, more than the destruction I've caused. And I want... She hesitated, seeming almost embarrassed. I want to know what it's like to be cared about. Not needed, not feared, not used, but actually cared about. Think you can manage that? I think I can try, Naruto said, extending his hand. So teach me. Show me who Shikaku really is, beyond the beast and the legend. Shikaku took his hand, and her grin widened. Alright then, let's start with something fun. I bet you didn't know I'm actually really good at strategy games. Chess, shogi, go, you name it. Turns out when you spend decades trapped in a seal with nothing to do, you get really good at thinking ahead. What followed was one of the most unexpected afternoons of Naruto's life. Shikaku conjured a shogi board from her chakra and proceeded to absolutely destroy him in game after game, all while chattering away about her experiences, her thoughts, her hopes and fears. She spoke about watching human civilization evolve from the outside, about the isolation of being sealed, about her complicated relationship with Gaara and how his eventual understanding had changed her. You know what the weirdest part is? Shikaku said as she captured another one of Naruto's pieces. I used to think humans were just weak, fragile things that broke easily. But Gaara taught me that breaking doesn't mean weak. He broke 100 times over, and every time he put himself back together stronger. That's not weakness. That's something we beasts don't really understand because we can't break the same way. You can't? Naruto asked, intrigued despite his steady defeats at shogi. We're chakra-given form, Shikaku explained. Even if our physical bodies are destroyed, we reform eventually. We don't die permanently. But that means we also don't really live the way you do. Every moment for you is precious because it could be your last. For us, moments just are. There's no urgency, no real stakes. Until now. Because of the children, Naruto realized. Because of the children, Shikaku confirmed. They'll be mortal, won't they? They'll have our power but your vulnerability. They'll be able to truly die, And that terrifies me more than anything I've faced in 1,000 years. Naruto looked at the small woman across from him with new understanding. Beneath the energy and the attitude, Shikaku was as scared as he was, maybe more so, because she was facing the prospect of experiencing true loss for the first time in her existence. Then we'll just have to protect them, Naruto said firmly. All of us together. That's what family does, right? Shikaku's eyes widened slightly, then she smiled, and this time there was no wildness in it, just genuine warmth. Yeah. I guess that is what family does. They spent the rest of the afternoon talking, playing games, and slowly building something that felt like the foundation of understanding. By the time the sun began to set, Naruto felt like he'd glimpsed the real person beneath the legendary beast. Same time tomorrow? Shikaku asked as they prepared to part ways. Actually, I think I should spend time with Matatabi tomorrow, Naruto said. Following the order you all agreed on. But I promise, this isn't the last time we'll talk like this. Building a real relationship means consistent time together, not just one afternoon. Look at you, already thinking like a responsible partner, Shikaku teased, but Naruto could see she was pleased. Alright, Blondie. Go with the two tails. But remember, I've got dibs on being the cool aunt to all the other kids. Naruto laughed and waved as Shikaku dissolved into chakra, returning to wherever the beasts went when not manifested. As he walked back to the village, he felt a strange mix of emotions. The task ahead was still overwhelming, still impossible by any reasonable measure. But for the first time since the prophecy had been revealed, he felt like it might actually be possible to build something genuine from it. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm. Each day, Naruto would spend several hours with one of the tailed beasts, learning their stories, sharing his own experiences, and slowly building the connections that the prophecy required. But more than that, he was building friendships, understanding, and the foundation for something that might actually resemble a family. Matatabi, the two tails, turned out to be elegant and thoughtful, with a dry sense of humor that caught Naruto off guard. She spoke of her time with Yujuto, her previous Jinchuriki, and how the woman's courage and grace had changed her perspective on humanity. They spent their time together in tea houses and quiet gardens, talking philosophy and the nature of freedom. Isebu, the three tails, was gentle despite his massive power, more interested in the flow of water and the patterns of nature than in combat or conflict. He'd spent centuries at the bottom of the ocean after his Jinchuriki died, alone with his thoughts and the endless depths. With Naruto, he spoke about loneliness and the beauty of connection, about how even the darkest depths could be illuminated by a single light. Son Goku, the four tails, was a warrior through and through, but one with a deep sense of honor and pride. She challenged Naruto to spars that left them both exhausted and exhilarated. But in the quiet moments afterward, she revealed a softer side, speaking about her respect for Rashi, her previous host, and her desire to raise children who would be strong but never cruel. Koko, the five tails, was serene and wise, spending their time together teaching Naruto about balance and patience. She'd spent much of her existence trying to understand the relationship between power and responsibility, and she saw in Naruto someone who embodied that balance naturally. Saiken, the six tails, was bubbly and cheerful despite her acidic abilities, finding joy in the smallest things and teaching Naruto to appreciate moments of happiness even in dire circumstances. Her previous host, Utakata, had been troubled, and she'd learned from him the importance of hope even when the world seemed determined to crush it. Chomei, the seven tails, was energetic and optimistic, her wings allowing her to see the world from perspectives others couldn't. She flew with Naruto through the skies, showing him the village from above, and spoke about freedom and the courage to be different. Gyuki, the eight tails, was powerful and introspective, with a depth that came from her long partnership with Killer Bee. She and Naruto traded stories about their hosts, laughing about Bee's ridiculous raps and finding common ground in their experiences as partners rather than master and beast. And through it all, Kurama was there, sometimes visible, sometimes just a presence in Naruto's mind, offering guidance and support as he navigated these complex new relationships. But as the weeks turned into months, and as Naruto's connections with each of the beasts deepened, reports began filtering in from across the shinobi world that demanded attention. Chakra anomalies appearing at random locations. Dimensional rifts that opened and closed without explanation. And most disturbing, Eyewitness accounts of strange symbols appearing in the sky, symbols that seemed to drain the chakra from anyone who looked at them too long. The threat the sage had foreseen was making its presence known, earlier than expected. In the Hokage's office, Naruto stood before a table covered in reports and maps, Shikamaru at his side, and the 9-tailed beasts manifested in their human forms around the room. The atmosphere was tense, the weight of impending crisis hanging over them all. "It's starting," Kurama said quietly, looking at the patterns marked on the map. "The dimensional weakening the sage predicted. Whatever's coming, it's testing our world's defenses, probing for weaknesses. We've got maybe 3 years now, not 5, Gyuki added, her expression grim. The timeline's accelerating. Then we need to accelerate too, Naruto said, straightening his shoulders. I've gotten to know each of you better over these past months. I understand who you are beyond the legends and the power, and I think... He paused, meeting each of their eyes in turn. I think I'm ready to move forward. Not because prophecy demands it, but because I believe in what we could build together. Are you sure? Matatabi asked, her dual-colored eyes searching his face. This isn't a decision you can take back, Naruto. I know, Naruto said firmly. But I've never been more sure of anything. These children, our children, they're not going to be weapons. They're going to be the next generation, the bridge between our worlds. And if that's what it takes to protect everyone I love, everyone we all love, then I'm ready to take that step. One by one, the 9 women nodded, their expressions a mixture of relief, anticipation, and determination. Then let's begin, Kurama said, stepping forward and taking Naruto's hand. Let's create the future the sage foresaw. Let's build a family worth fighting for. As the others gathered close, Naruto felt the weight of destiny settling onto his shoulders. But beneath that weight, he also felt something lighter, hope. Hope that they could make this work. Hope that the children born from these unions would be everything the prophecy promised and more. Hope that love, in all its complex and impossible forms, would be enough to face whatever darkness was coming. The ancient covenant, sealed millennia ago by the Sage of Six Paths, was finally ready to be fulfilled. And though the path ahead was uncertain, though the challenges would be greater than anything they'd faced before, they would face them together, as family. And that, Naruto realized as he looked at the 9 incredible beings who had chosen to trust him with their hopes and futures, made all the difference. The gathering storm was upon them, but they were no longer facing it alone. They were facing it as the family they had chosen to become, bound not by chains of destiny, but by bonds of understanding, respect, and the tentative beginnings of something that might, eventually, be called love. The prophecy had brought them together, but what they built from here would be entirely their own creation. And in that, there was power beyond anything the Sage of Six Paths could have foreseen. The future was unwritten, and it was theirs to shape. The decision had been made, but implementing it proved far more complex than Naruto had anticipated. Standing in his home 3 days after committing to the prophecy's fulfillment, he faced a challenge he never expected, explaining the situation to his children. Boruto, now 15, sat with his arms crossed, his expression caught between confusion and anger. Himawari, 13, looked between her parents with wide, uncertain eyes. Hinata stood beside Naruto, her hand resting gently on his shoulder in a gesture of support that he desperately needed. Let me get this straight, Boruto said, his voice tight. You're telling us that you're going to have children with 9 different women who are actually giant chakra monsters in human form, because some ancient prophecy says their kids will save the world? That's an oversimplification, but essentially yes, Naruto admitted, running a hand through his hair. I know how it sounds, Boruto. Believe me, I know. Do you? Boruto shot back. Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you're abandoning our family for some crazy destiny thing. Again, the accusation stung, particularly because there was truth in it. Naruto had spent so much of his children's lives consumed by his duties as Hokage, always putting the village first. And now he was asking them to accept something even more extreme. Boruto, Hinata said gently but firmly. Your father isn't abandoning us. He's doing what he must to protect not just our family, but everyone. You know the weight he carries as Hokage. But this is different, Mom. This isn't just being busy with paperwork or missions. He's going to have other families, other kids who'll have his attention. Where does that leave us? Himawari, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke up. Will you still love us? Her voice was small, vulnerable in a way that broke Naruto's heart. When you have these new children, will you forget about us? Naruto knelt down in front of his daughter, taking her hands in his. Himawari, listen to me. There is nothing in this world that could make me stop loving you or your brother. You're my children. That will never change, no matter what else happens. But you'll have other children to love too, she said, tears beginning to form in her eyes. And they'll be special, with amazing powers. How can we compete with that? You don't have to compete, Naruto said, pulling her into a hug. Love doesn't work that way. It doesn't divide, it multiplies. Every child I have, every person I care about, they all get their own piece of my heart. One doesn't diminish the other. Boruto stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. This is insane. I can't. I need some air. He headed for the door, but paused at the threshold. Without turning back, he said, I get that you're trying to save the world, Dad. You're always trying to save the world. I just wish, for once, you'd remember that your world includes us too. Then he was gone, leaving a heavy silence in his wake. Naruto closed his eyes, fighting back his own emotions. He'd known this would be difficult, but knowing and experiencing were vastly different things. Himawari still clung to him, and he held her close, whispering reassurances even as doubt gnawed at him. He'll come around, Hinata said softly. He's hurt and confused, but he's also your son. He has your heart, your determination. Give him time to process this. What if I'm making a mistake? Naruto asked, looking up at his wife. What if trying to fulfill this prophecy destroys everything I already have? Hinata knelt beside them, creating a small circle of family. Then we'll face it together. Naruto, I won't pretend this doesn't hurt. It does. But I also know who you are. You're not doing this because you want to. You're doing it because you believe it's necessary to protect those you love. That includes us, and it includes everyone in this village, and everyone in the world beyond. She took his free hand, her Byakugan eyes full of understanding and pain and love all mixed together. We'll figure this out as a family. All of us. The children you have, the children you will have, they're all part of this now. So we make it work. Because that's what we do. The next morning, Naruto found himself at the entrance to a secure facility on the outskirts of the village. It had been constructed specifically for this purpose. A place where the tailed beasts could manifest their human forms safely and privately, away from the prying eyes of villagers and foreign shinobi who might not understand what was happening. Kurama met him at the entrance, her crimson eyes assessing him with the familiarity of decades of partnership. Rough night? She asked. You were there. You know it was, Naruto replied. As his primary tailed beast, Kurama could sense his emotional state even when not directly manifested. The boy will come around, Kurama said, echoing Hinata's words. He's got your stubborn streak, but he also has your heart. He'll realize you're not choosing this over him. You're choosing this for him. I hope you're right. Naruto stepped into the facility, finding the other 8 women waiting in a large central room. They decorated it to feel more homely than institutional, with comfortable furniture, warm lighting, and personal touches that each had added over the past few days. We heard about last night, Matatabi said gently. We're sorry. This must be incredibly difficult for your family. It's difficult for everyone, Naruto said, taking a seat. But we're committed to making this work. So let's talk about how we actually do this. Because the prophecy might tell us what needs to happen, but it doesn't give us an instruction manual. Gyuki leaned forward, her 8 braids swaying. We've been discussing this among ourselves. The sage's prophecy specified that each of us must bear a child with you, but it didn't specify the timing or method. We have some flexibility in how we approach this. What are you thinking? Naruto asked. We think it should be done in the order we established, Isaba said, her calm voice helping to settle Naruto's nerves. One at a time, allowing each child to be conceived, born, and given proper attention before moving to the next. This isn't a race, despite the threat looming over us. But won't that take too long? Naruto asked. If each pregnancy is 9 months, and we have 10 children to conceive, our pregnancies won't be normal, Shikaku interjected, bouncing slightly in her seat. We're not fully human, remember? We've discussed this with some of the medical experts in secret. Best estimate is that our pregnancies will last about 6 months each, not 9. Our bodies are adapted to channel massive amounts of chakra, which accelerates the development process. 6 months times 10 is still 5 years, Naruto calculated. And we only have 3 years now, which is why we've agreed to overlap, Coco said serenely. Once the first child is born and stable, the second conception can begin, while the first is still an infant. It will be challenging, but not impossible. By staggering the births, we can have all 10 children within the 3-year timeline. Naruto's mind reeled at the logistics. Multiple pregnancies, multiple infants, all while trying to prepare for an apocalyptic threat and maintain his duties as Hokage and father to his existing children. It seemed impossible. I can see the panic on your face, Kurama said with a slight smile. Breathe, kid. You're not doing this alone. We're not going to dump 10 babies on you and expect you to figure it out solo. We'll all be involved in raising all the children. That's the whole point, isn't it? Building a family? A very unconventional family, Saiken added cheerfully. But then again, when has conventional ever been your style, Naruto? Despite his anxiety, Naruto found himself smiling. They were right. He'd never done anything the conventional way. Why should starting a prophesied family be any different? All right, he said, straightening his shoulders. Let's do this. But I need everyone to understand something first. These children, they're not tools. They're not weapons to be aimed at our enemies. They're people, individuals who deserve to have real lives, real choices, and real love. Whatever power they inherit, that comes second to them being children who are protected and cherished. Agreed, all 9 women said in unison, and Naruto felt the weight of their conviction behind the word. Then I guess the question is, Naruto said, looking at Shikaku, are you ready? You're first in the order. Shikaku's usual manic energy was subdued as she nodded. Yeah. I'm ready. Terrified, but ready. I've spent 1,000 years being told I was too crazy, too unstable, too dangerous to be trusted with anything important. Now I get to prove all of them wrong. I get to be a mother. The vulnerability in her voice struck something deep in Naruto. He stood and walked over to her, extending his hand. Then let's take this first step together. Not because we have to, but because we choose to. Shikaku took his hand, her amber eyes meeting his with an intensity that spoke of 1,000 years of loneliness finally finding a path to something more. Yeah. Let's do that. Over the following weeks, Naruto discovered that developing a genuine connection with someone was vastly different from the rushed encounters he'd feared the prophecy would demand. Shikaku had moved into a private section of the facility, and Naruto spent increasing amounts of time with her, learning the small details that made her an individual rather than just a legend. She was obsessed with board games and strategy, as she'd shown him in their first meeting, but she was also deeply artistic, creating elaborate sand sculptures that rivaled anything professional artists could produce. She loved spicy food to an almost absurd degree and had a collection of terrible jokes that she'd accumulated over centuries. Why did the shinobi refuse to trust the tree? She asked one evening as they shared a meal. I don't know why. Naruto replied, already bracing for the punchline. Because it was too shady. Shikaku burst into laughter at her own joke, and despite how bad it was, Naruto found himself laughing too. But there were also serious moments, times when Shikaku's mask of energy slipped and revealed the depths beneath. One night, as they sat on the roof of the facility watching the stars, she spoke about her greatest fear. What if I'm a terrible mother? She asked quietly. What if the instability that made everyone fear me for so long comes out in how I raise this child? What if I damage them the way I damaged Gaara before he and I finally understood each other? You won't, Naruto said firmly. Because you're already thinking about it, already worried about it. Bad parents don't question themselves like that. And you won't be alone in this. I'll be there, and so will the others. We're all figuring this out together. Easy for you to say. You've already been a father. You know how it's done. Are you kidding? Naruto laughed. I've made so many mistakes with Boruto and Himawari. I've been absent when I should have been present. I've been so focused on the village that I've neglected them. Being a parent doesn't come with a manual. You just love them as hard as you can and hope it's enough. Shikaku was quiet for a long moment. Love them as hard as you can, she repeated. I like that. I think I can do that. As the weeks turned into a month, then too, something shifted between them. It wasn't romantic love in the traditional sense, but it was real nonetheless. A bond built on shared vulnerability, on the conscious choice to trust each other with something precious. When the time finally came, when Shikaku confirmed that their child had been conceived, Naruto felt a complex mix of emotions. Joy, terror, responsibility, hope, all tangled together in a way that made his chest tight. We did it, Shikaku said, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. There's a life growing in here. Part you, part me, part something entirely new. Are you scared? Naruto asked. Absolutely terrified, she admitted. But also, excited? Is that weird? I'm excited to meet this little person, to see what they'll be like, what they'll inherit from each of us. It's not weird, Naruto assured her. It's what every parent feels, I think. News of the first pregnancy spread through the tailed beasts quickly, and each reacted in their own way. Some were supportive and excited, already making plans to help with childcare. Others were nervous, suddenly confronted with the reality of what they'd agreed to. But all of them understood that this was the point of no return. The prophecy was no longer theoretical. It was happening. The pregnancy progressed rapidly, just as the medical experts had predicted. Within 3 months, Shikaku was visibly showing, her small frame making the pregnancy more pronounced. She handled it with her characteristic energy, though Naruto could see the strain it put on her. It's weird, she said during one of Naruto's visits. I can feel the kid's chakra mixing with mine. They're going to be powerful. Really powerful. But they also feel gentle? Is that possible? Maybe they're inheriting the best parts of both of us, Naruto suggested. Then they're going to be stubborn as hell, Shikaku laughed. Between your determination and my intensity, this kid won't know when to quit. But as Shikaku's pregnancy advanced, the situation in the outside world continued to deteriorate. The chakra anomalies were increasing in frequency and intensity. Several villages reported sightings of strange beings that didn't match any known threat. And most disturbingly, there were reports of people losing their ability to use chakra entirely after encountering these anomalies. Naruto stood in the Hokage's office with Shikamaru, reviewing the latest intelligence reports. The news was grim. It's spreading, Shikamaru said, pointing to marks on the map. Whatever this is, it's not random. There's a pattern to the appearances. It's like something is systematically testing our world's defenses, looking for weak points. How long until it finds one? Naruto asked. Based on the progression rate? Maybe 2 years, perhaps less. And Naruto, there's something else. Shikamaru pulled out another report, this one marked with the highest security classification. We've intercepted communications from other villages. They know something is happening. They don't know the details, but they know it's connected to you and the tailed beasts. Some are getting nervous. Nervous enough to be a problem? Not yet. But if they perceive the prophecy or these children as a threat rather than a defense. Shikamaru trailed off, leaving the implication hanging. We can't hide this forever, Naruto said. Eventually, we're going to have to tell the other villages what's happening, what we're preparing for. I'd recommend waiting until after the first child is born, Shikamaru advised. A theoretical prophecy is one thing. A living child is another. It'll be harder for them to object to something that already exists. Naruto nodded, though the secrecy chafed at him. He built his reputation on honesty and openness, but the stakes were too high to risk interference. The conversation was interrupted by a burst of chakra from the direction of the facility. Naruto's eyes widened as he recognized the signature. That's Shikaku, he said, already moving toward the door. Something's wrong. He raced through the village, Shikamaru struggling to keep up. When he burst into the facility, he found Kurama and Gyuki already there, supporting Shikaku, who was doubled over in obvious discomfort. What's happening? Naruto demanded. The baby's coming, Kurama said quickly. It's early, even by our accelerated timeline. Only 5 months instead of 6. Is that bad? Naruto asked, moving to Shikaku's side. We don't know, Gyuki admitted. We've never done this before. Medical team is on the way. Shikaku grabbed Naruto's hand with surprising strength. Hey, Blondie, she managed through gritted teeth. I know this isn't exactly the birthing plan we discussed, but the kid seems to have inherited your impatience. Despite the situation, Naruto found himself smiling. Then they're going to fit right in with this crazy family. What followed was several hours of controlled chaos. The medical team, sworn to secrecy and composed of Konoha's best, worked to ensure a safe delivery while monitoring the unprecedented situation of a tailed beast giving birth in human form. The room crackled with chakra, Shikaku's power fluctuating wildly as her body worked through the process. Naruto stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand and offering what comfort he could. The other tailed beasts gathered outside, their combined presence creating a beacon of chakra that anyone sensitive could feel across the village. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a cry pierced the air. Not a normal infant's cry, but one that carried undertones of power, of ancient chakra filtered through new life. It's a boy, one of the medical staff announced, carefully cleaning the infant and performing quick checks. And he's incredible. His chakra levels are off the charts, but stable. Very stable. They placed the baby in Shikaku's arms, and Naruto watched as centuries of loneliness and isolation melted away from her face, replaced by pure, unconditional love. The infant had sandy blonde hair like his mother, and blue eyes like Naruto. But there was something else, something visible even to normal eyes. His skin bore faint markings reminiscent of Shikaku's curl patterns, and when he opened his eyes fully, they glowed briefly with amber light before settling into a more normal blue. Hey there, little guy, Shikaku whispered, her voice uncharacteristically soft. Welcome to the craziest family in the shinobi world. He needs a name, Naruto said, carefully touching his son's tiny hand. The infant's fingers wrapped around his, and Naruto felt a surge of protective love so intense it nearly overwhelmed him. Shinki, Shikaku said immediately. It means faith or trust. Because he represents the faith we're all putting in this prophecy, and the trust we're building between our worlds. Shinki Uzumaki, Naruto said, testing the name. I like it. As they sat there, the first child of the prophecy sleeping peacefully in his mother's arms, the weight of what they'd begun settled over them. This was real now. This tiny, perfect being represented the first step in fulfilling an ancient covenant, but more than that, he represented hope. Hope that different worlds could unite. Hope that the bonds between humans and beasts could create something beautiful. Hope that love, in all its complex and unconventional forms, could be the foundation for something strong enough to face whatever darkness was coming. Outside the room, the other eight-tailed beasts sensed the birth and felt something shift in the fabric of their reality. The prophecy was unfolding, and there was no going back now. In the Hokage's office, alarms began to sound as sensors detected a massive spike in the chakra anomalies. Whatever was coming had sensed the birth too, and it was accelerating its approach. But in that moment, holding his newborn son while Shikaku looked on with exhausted joy, Naruto felt something he hadn't felt in months: certainty. They were on the right path. These children were exactly what the world needed. Welcome to the world, Shinki, Naruto whispered. You're going to do amazing things. But first, let's just focus on being a family. As if in response, baby Shinki yawned, unconsciously channeling a tiny burst of chakra that caused sand to swirl briefly in the air around them before settling. Already displaying his mother's abilities, but with a control that suggested his father's influence. The first bond had been forged. The first child of prophecy had arrived. And though the storm was gathering on the horizon, though threats both known and unknown were closing in that moment there was only peace. The peace of new life, new possibility, and new hope for a world that desperately needed it. 9 more children would follow, each unique, each powerful, each a bridge between worlds. But Shinki was the first, and in being first, he would always hold a special place in the strange, beautiful, and possible family they were building together. The prophecy had demanded their participation, but the love they would pour into these children would be entirely their own choice. And that, more than any ancient prediction, would be what saved them all.